Church Bells leader fan radio network.
But you know what?
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 27 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to the Friday Football Beast edition of the afternoon Aardvark right here on the Fan. On just a lovely Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Guardsy is out today. Brett Blakemore is back in that chair. My name is Dan Barreiro, the host of the program. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is being rebooted as we speak. 646-86 is probably the easiest way to reach us, although today might be a good day for the use of the talkback. We've got our two winter sports professional franchises on the brink of starting their playoff runs. At least that's the hope, that they will be more than one and dones, especially on the hockey side, which, of course, has that albatross around its neck. It's an albatross that the Wolves had during the Flip Saunders era. I think it was 6 straight ones and dones in that case. For the Wild, I believe we've lost our last 9 playoff series. Now, that includes one in which we did advance out of the first round and then lost the next round. But getting out of the first round has been a bit tricky and a bit problematic, and we'll see if they can do anything about it this time around. I mentioned that we are indeed your cojones the size of church bells leader, because I honestly didn't believe that the Wild would do what they apparently now officially say they are doing, start the 40% goaltender, the kid, without any postseason playoff experience. And you could make the argument that it's not that gutty of a move, in that the split was 60-40. And, in fact, one goalie has been playing a lot better than the other most recently. But I think what this move tells me more than anything else is they are aware of that history. They are aware of the stakes. They are aware of the pressure this franchise is now under. And when I say pressure, I don't mean it's we either deliver this year or we bust, because the moves this team has made, obviously starting with the Quinnesota move, is made with the intent of being good for a while and having several chances to make playoff runs. It's not like all or nothing, he's gone after this season. But I do think it underscores a belief that we've got to do. You have to take your best shot at this because this is the moment. And I firmly evolved to the place over the course of this week to where I thought, and still think, that starting Volstead is the correct decision. It's the decision I would make if I were in charge. I continued to doubt, though, that the Wild would go away from the veteran. In fact, as recently as yesterday, Russo Radio with us said, well, he told my former partner, Chad Hartman, a few days ago, that he being Bill Guerin, that the decision had already been made. And Russo interpreted that as that was before the most recent lousy performance by Gustafsson, and therefore that pretty much to him underscored they're going to go with the veteran. And is it possible they reconsidered? Is it possible that last performance tilted the balance? Should any one performance tilt it? Probably not. But there's enough body of work here. And I think you were, Brett Blakemore, more in the camp of stay with Gus Bus. I honestly believe that some of this And you and I have a fundamental disagreement about how he performed in the game in Dallas. But beyond that, I think, and this is why I appreciate the move. It may not work. There's no guarantee. But this is what I appreciate about this decision. It definitely goes against the grain. It's definitely not the assumed approach and decision. And to me, it says we have to do what we think gives the entire team the best chance to succeed. And for game one, we think this is the way we have to go. You have other players. And I'm not saying players are voting. I'm not saying there's any kind of a split there, but I'm saying when you're making these kinds of calls, I think you owe it to the other players in the room to say, we know what you represent. We know how good we think you can be and how good you think you can be. Nevertheless, this is a very hard series. You're playing a team that got to the conference finals each of the last 3 seasons. They've got pedigree. They've got talent. And they do have home ice advantage for whatever that's worth. So none of this is going to be easy. So we have to look for any edge we can get, or forget edges. We just have to go into this not conceding anything, including the first game. And I'm impressed with the decision. Again, I'm impressed not because we know it's going to work out, because we're not going to know until, obviously, tomorrow afternoon and evening, but that they made it, because I think it's a hard decision to make. And I think a lot of management teams, I'm assuming this is a decision made by the head coach, perhaps in conjunction with the goalie coach, would have gone, well, Gustafson's been the guy. He's really been more of the guy. The kid hasn't done anything in the postseason, so let's throw out the veteran guy for game one, because we can always switch in game 2. Everybody agreed the leash was going to be very short, but I give them credit. This decision makes me feel like they are serious about giving themselves the best chance to go after this right now. And it falls into the classification to me of we got to do what we got to do. And we can't worry about hurt feelings. We can't worry, and we can't even really second guess ourselves once we've made that decision. Where are you on?
I completely agree with you. I think, it's between doing the right thing and doing the easy thing. The easy thing is just go, well, Gus is our guy. He's a veteran. And I'm stunned, frankly. I was working Vox in the Box yesterday, and the way Hines talked about Gus was just, well, scorers, they have bad nights. We still play them. So we're going to work with them, and, we're going to stick. That's our plan. That was almost word for word what he said. I read that as, well, it's Gus. It's not even a question. And here we are, Volstedt's getting game 1. So I think this was probably the right thing. I think some of his struggles, Gus, has been overblown. And I think, we disagree on that. But I never have said that starting Volstedt is a wrong or a bad move. I've always thought he's great. The worst part is negative Nelly coming out of me is thinking, well, no matter what we do, Ottinger still frightens me as far as a goaltending edge.
Yeah.
But in what we can control, I like the move to go to Volstedt. I'm just stunned that they did it. Personally.
Yeah, I think if you're a Wild fan, you should be very encouraged by, I think, again, what it represents. It doesn't win you the series. It doesn't win you the game. But it's a, whoa, they're not messing around here. And ultimately, I think what should govern these sorts of decisions is doing what you think makes the most sense in that moment, regardless of what's taken place over the course of the season. You could make the argument, too, that when it wasn't 80-20. It was 60-40, which is not that different. Even I could do the math of 50-50. My point being, most people would say over the course of this season that Gustafson's still the number one goalie, but when it's 60-40, there's not that big of a distinction, and it's pretty unusual. And, we've got Bill Guerin at 402, so I'm assuming he will be able to, at that point, give us his reaction to this, his own input on it. And it's part of, for me, when we talk about postseason sports, part of what makes, I think, the Stanley Cup potentially even more interesting is this kind of decision. There's no other sport in which I guess you could say if you got like two, maybe your number one starter in baseball is great, and your number two starter over the course of the season has been almost as good, but then at the end of the season, the number one guy falters lately, and you decide, game one, we're going with our number two guy. That would probably be the closest to this. And again, it doesn't happen in hockey a lot because usually there's more of a difference between the number one and the number two historically. But this is the sort of strategic flourish that I think makes the postseason fascinating. We're going to be talking about it forever, and we all know how it's going to go. If Falstead's terrible, the team's going to get ripped. I won't rip them because on the front end, this is how I felt for pretty much most of this week, especially as the week evolved. But that's the way it's going to work. It's going to be because there are people out there who probably think Gustafsson should be the starter, and they go, see, they should have. I don't want to put also too much pressure on a single game in a best-of-7 series because it's not impossible to lose game one and even have your goalie look bad and still win a series. It's harder when you're the road team, but not impossible. It's what we have to be reminded of when it comes to best-of-7 series. How many times has your favorite hockey team had a series lead within a best-of-7 first-round series? Was it two? Weren't we up? Was it last year we were up 2-1?
There were a couple
seasons
in a row
where we were up 2-1, weren't we? With a chance to go up, good chance to go up 3-1.
That was the talker, was they can't put the boot on the throat and put the series away, and it's been twice now that they've done that. So, it's fascinating how this works. I wonder if, like, let's say the Wild win 5-4 in overtime, but 4 of the goals are bad. What do you do?
That's where it gets interesting.
So there's just so many tentacles to how things play out, and if you give up a bunch of goals but you win the game, does that warrant you to start in game two? We'll see how it plays out.
I want to stay with this. Go back into a little bit of the goaltender, the postseason goalie history recently in the under the Bill Guerin regime of Minnesota Wild hockey, because there's some good history to get into here. As soon as I can get the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line rebooted, we will consider your text as well. That's 64686. We've moved some guests around. We'll give you some details on all of them. But remember, Bill Guerin is scheduled to join us from Dallas at 4:00.
Are you looking to score tickets to the biggest games and concerts in town? From Santana, Doobie Brothers, 311, Chris Stapleton, and more, your chance to win is waiting. You can enter now, KFAN.com, keyword contest, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
We spent a lot of time back in 2022 on goalie controversies. I remember it like it was just yesterday. Your guy, Cam Talbot, finishes the regular season 12-0-3. I repeat, 12-0-3. Nevertheless, your favorite hockey team went with Flower against the Blues. And at the time, some of the speculation was, if you want me to waive my no trade clause in my contract, you kind of have to maybe promise me something. That may well have been the deal made. How'd that turn out? And this wasn't a second guess, or isn't now, wasn't then, because we were firmly in the camp of saying, I get it. He's immortality. He's Flower. You got to play it out. You got the same thing I'm saying today in a way that they're now doing it. You got to do what you got to do. 2023, Gus Bus on the other end of this. 51 saves. Remember the double overtime victory against the Stars? You remember it like yesterday, don't you? Game one? Guess who started game two? Flower. How'd that go? We got obliterated on that occasion. So there's goalie intrigue in the history of this team just over the last few years. That's also, I think, the backdrop that makes this decision so fascinating. And again, you mentioned it. Part of the evaluation in game one to me has to be not necessarily, it's not winning or losing. Doesn't have to be. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. if you lose the opener, let's say you lose the opener 2-1 or 3-2. Do you stick with the kid because he, let's say, looked very good in that game, even though you didn't win the game? A lot of variables here. On the other hand, I think it strains credulity to think that you're going to stick with one goalie all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, again, if one guy is great, then you do. It's not unprecedented, but realistically, I think you're going to see ebb and flow. And the beauty of having two goaltenders you think you can count on is you have the kind of depth that some teams in that regard, some teams just simply do not have. Mike responding to that history we just laid out, I think maybe they learned their lesson the year when they played Flower instead of Talbot. He was playing better, but they went with Flower. I'm going to ask Guerin that question. He's not going to like it. He's going to say that has nothing to do with what we're doing now. I stand by that decision. Different, exactly it. Yeah. But I will ask because that is, if you go with, if the Wild is consistent with their approach in that regard, that's what you do. You get stubborn and say, no, our number one goaltender at the start of this season, before we knew where Wallstedt was, is Gustafsson. Over the course of the season, he's been a very good goalie. The tandem has been the best in hockey. So we're going to stick with that. That would be consistent with what they've done before. I think that was a mistake back then. I've made no bones about that, even with Guerin. And I said, it wasn't like I waited for the result. It was, I'm just responding to what I saw at the end of the season. And, in that case, it backfired on them. And this is the opposite approach. So whether they'll admit one thing has anything to do with the other, very difficult to say. I don't know that we'll ever get an answer to that. May have an on-air production meeting we got to get to here in a moment. Here's the dilemma. We have Lavelle E. Neal III usually joins us at 5:30. Mm-hmm. Because of some scheduling issues for Ben Gessling, he agreed to come on at 3:30 to allow Ben Gessling, now that we're approaching draft week, to join at 5:30. Bill Guerin is 4:02. Here's the rub. I just got a text from Broadcast Immortality, Kevin Harlan. Finally responding to a text from me saying, how about any time in the next 30 minutes?
Oh, no.
So, well, actually, the text reads, how about over the next 30 months? I think he means 30 minutes. I'm going to say yes. How about 3:35 Central? He is doing, by the way, Wolves-Denver Game 1. Right? That's it's always good to have Harlan on, but that's the more specific peg for this moment.
I think the bigger headline is the voice of Green Bay Packers preseason, Kevin Harlan.
That's true.
But that's neither here nor there.
The whole Harlan family, man.
Yeah,
exactly. As big as it gets. That's immortality, too, in Green Bay. And so here's what we're going to have, because Lavelle, I'm going to punish Lavelle for his flexibility. I'm going to say he would understand. And if we have to squeeze Lavelle, maybe we do Lavelle at 5 o'clock or something, ahead. If I'd rather get him on at some point. Now, if he pouts and says 3:30 or nothing, we might have to skip him because we don't have that many opportunities to get Harlan on.
Well, then I wouldn't have to do top 5 at 5. Oh, no. Rats.
You hate that, don't you? You love it. You love spreading your wings in the top 5 at 5.
I do, yeah. No, we could do 5 or 4:30 or whatever works. All
right, yeah. Here's the confirmation from Harlan, because I did suggest 3:35, and he says that's fine. Why don't we cold call Lavelle on the air right now? Can you do that? Do you know how to do that?
Yes.
Let's cold call him right now, and I'll ask him directly. Just make sure he understands we're on the air so he doesn't swear or anything, although he's usually pretty good about that. And we'll see if we can get him to understand our dilemma. This is what happens in big-time radio sometimes. You have to make adjustments. And, this is, I guess, sort of like the Wild goaltending situation. We kind of got to do what we got to do. Kevin Harlan's available. Lava, we love you. We love your consistency. We love that you're always there for us, but there'll be another time for you to contribute to the show. It's as simple as that is what it is. So we'll see if we can get them and negotiate this on air. And maybe if we do it on air, it'll be harder. Lava, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Now, have you been listening to the radio?
Yeah, I was trying to text you guys, let you know I can stand down this week if you got to get Harlan in.
Well, let me throw this into the mix. I'm going to give you a choice. If you say it's 3:30 or nothing, I'll accept it because you already were kind enough to alter your schedule once. But I will give you an option. We also could do you at 5 o'clock. We could include you at 5, just get rid of the top 5 at 5 because we got guessing at 5:30. Would that work for you, or does that make your day too complicated?
The top 5 at 5 is like a staple of your show. It would be hard for me to trample upon that. Are you sure it's okay?
That's how much we value your, contributions to the program. We're willing, especially Blakemore, to step aside for the top 5 at 5 and give you that very popular and important real estate.
Okay, I'll come on at 5. That's fine. I just want to point out that I almost came into the studio today, which would have been double trouble.
Well, here's what I think what we probably would have done in that situation, we just would have had you on with Harlan. We just would have said, hey, Kevin, by the way, we got your old buddy Lavelle E. Neal III on as well. We wouldn't have booted you.
I got Harlan stories, too.
I bet you do. It wouldn't surprise me. All right, well, then we're good for 5 o'clock.
Yeah, let's talk at 5.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Lavelle E. Neal III. Look what a team player he is. All right, so let's give ourselves a good chunk of time with Kevin Harlan, who will be on the call, the TV call, the only TV call now, because even in the first round, there's no FanDuel stuff this time around, no local or regional broadcast. That's part of the new deal. We'll get Harlan's view on the Wolves-Denver series, and we'll catch up on a number of things with him. Always a pleasure this time of year to get some time with broadcasting immortality. Mr. Harlan, Kevin Harlan is next.
The Wolves are taking on the Nuggets in round 1 of the NBA playoffs. If you're not in the building, you're just missing out. If you want in, you can enter at KFAN.com, keyword contest, to win a pair of tickets to Game 3, Thursday, April 23rd. Grab yours today, Timberwolves.com/playoffs, Timberwolves.com/playoffs.
One of the great things about doing live major market primetime afternoon radio is, in our business, we contact people that we like to get on the air over a period of time, and you never know when they're going to get back to you. And in this case, our next guest got back to us during the first half hour of the program, and you never know if you're going to get a chance to talk with Broadcast Immortality or when it's going to be. So when it happens this way, when it's kind of unexpected, out of nowhere, on the fly, it's even better. Kevin Harlan, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Dan. I said I was sorry to get back to you late. We had a kind of a rough back-to-back play-in week in Los Angeles and Phoenix, and got back, and our 7 grandkids were here, and so I've been up to my backside in alligators for the last 24 hours. I'm heading back out to the airport, so I got to get a hold of Dan.
There you go.
So this is our window, and I'm glad you were able to fit it in, and I'm thrilled to join you as always.
We made time, and we do appreciate when we can get you because we know how difficult, especially this time of year, the schedule is. In fact, this text just came in a couple of minutes ago. Any chance you can tell Harlan that he got me hooked on the Wolves? My dad, rest in peace, and I would watch the Wolves when they were terrible. I now have googly, oogly, 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 baby, in my nomenclature. You never mind hearing that, do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was, it felt like so long ago,
Yep.
But no, I love Googs and I love KG and I loved all those guys. They were great. Bill and Zuffalato. I mean, you were there. You walked through those doors like I did, and we were all together covering that team. It was fun. I'm thrilled to see they've had such incredible consistency here. It's hard. The West is just so dynamic and just a torture chamber, and trying to figure out where you fit and how you're going to compete and keeping guys healthy. But I would say that for a team that always has a big target on their back like the Wolves do because of Edwards and just the success they've had to survive the way they have is a credit to the sustainability. I mean, it is so hard to stay relevant in this league. One guy leaving can trigger three guys leaving, and you bring in new guys, and it's rarely the same. They've kept this group together for the most part. And John had a great story about, the three young guys, McDaniels and Nas and Anthony Edwards, and how they've been able to kind of grow together both on the floor and off the floor with just becoming young men. And delightful story, great story, but so true about the organization. They've stuck to it. And I really appreciate that about what they're doing.
Well, you are speaking to a central conflict I have almost every day, especially this time of year. Because on the one hand, and you know this better than most, there was a time in this organization where there was no such thing as taking for granted making the playoffs and making playoff runs, right? I mean, there were many, many years when the team didn't even make the playoffs at all. And now here we are in a period of complete stability compared to that, where you've got management, you've got, one of the most respected basketball people in the league in Tim Conley. You've got the same people, like you said, players to a large degree, and the same people on the management team in place. And you say, for the folks who are too young to know, you shouldn't take this for granted, the idea that they're back in it and considered viable again. On the other hand, as you also know, you grade on a tougher curve as you go, and there was a feeling this year, look, we don't want to finish in sixth. Before the season began, this team said, look, we want to be a championship contender this year, and so we want to be in a better position. And they kind of hemmed and hawed through the season to find themselves back in that same position at number 6. Now, the work's still in front of them, as you well know, but that's the conflict here, is I don't want to forget how putrid it was. You had to broadcast so many of those games over many, many years because this is a complete contrast. On the other hand, there is a desire now among fans to say, okay, can we take the next step? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get the feeling, and I appreciate, maybe some impatience and you know better than anybody what that drought can look like and what inept basketball can resemble, and we saw it, but they had to find their traction, and that's right, all part of the process. It's kind of, what we do and how we go about it. Following some directions here. So I'm driving, and we got construction all over town.
Be careful, man. I don't want to be responsible for a Harlan accident.
Not at all. No, okay. I just had to look. They're sending me in who knows where now. Anyway, but it's so. I just think consistency, playoff appearances, young players, and led by Edwards. Like there's just so much there that we all want. We all want everything at the end right now.
Sure, yeah.
And it's kind of a process, but they've made these 2 Western Conference finals. They've been in there slugging away. They've tried to tweak a little bit along the way, but they basically stay with the same pattern. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of teams do, and they find success. There's nothing to say this team can't explode here and find whatever traction they may be looking for or consistency or however you want to label it and make their move. Now, this is a rugged team. And they met them a couple of years ago, and we did that series, and Denver is nothing to snicker at, and they're as good as we think they are. They've won 12 in a row. They got, a guy that should be the MVP and probably won't get it because people are tired of talking about him, but he's averaging a triple-double. He's been at the core of their success. So this is going to be a rugged series. At the same time, why not the Wolves, and why not this year? And, it's so funny. Not funny, but it's just such a twist of fate how an injury or a guy, maybe falling into a slump, you just never know when those things are going to happen either way. And you just hope that they happen for the other team, and it might. And we don't know. But I'm excited. This series to me is the best first round series by far. And I'm thrilled I'm on it. I've got the game up there next week on Thursday. We've got the game tomorrow afternoon in Denver. And so I love this series. I love the matchup, but it will be gritty and it will be It's not going to be the faint of heart. I mean, there are going to be some moments here which are going to just going to rip your heart out, and there are going to be others which will bring you total elation. And that's what we love about sports, the roller coaster that it is. But this will be a roller coaster, I have a feeling.
There's no question about that. And, of course, you are very well aware of a number of the matchups here and the challenges. And to me, the biggest difference between Denver now and the Denver team that the Wolves knocked off in the playoffs a couple years ago is Jamal Murray is playing his rear end off. I mean, he's averaging, I think, this year over 25. The Wolves did a good job limiting him in that series, as I'm sure you know, a couple years ago. He may not have also been 100% healthy. But to me, it sort of starts there. Can you at least limit him a little bit? Because we all kind of assume Joker's going to be Joker. And even Finchie said, look, the other thing that's hard is we could kind of cheat off of Aaron Gordon a couple years ago because he wasn't the shooter that he is now. He's become a very legitimate three-point shooting threat, which adds to the challenge about, what you give up and where you give it up.
He is a all-star, and probably he was late to the all-star party. He should have been one a couple years ago. Dynamic scorer, hard to defend, is good from distance as much as he is from the two-point area, and he's gotten smarter, and he's been such an incredible compliment to Jokic. Like, I just really feel, and Michael Malone did the hard work here.
Yes.
To get them on that same page. And now he's gone, and we're familiar with the new coach, Adelman, and he's done a nice job picking up where Michael left off. And they're smarter, they're wiser, but the Wolves are the same way. The same group has played together. The chemistry has already been established. I mean, there's so many things in place, which makes they know exactly what they're going to be doing and how they're going to do it and who's going to be doing it. And that's what makes it tough. When you know who, on both ends of that spectrum, how can you stop or move forward? And that is going to be, I'm hopeful that Ant is 100%. We know the leg injury in the season that kind of not debilitated, but certainly made him, a guy that was coming back from injury. Mm-hmm. And we all know how weird with the quick twitch ability that he has, how difficult that can be. But I just think that this becomes the kind of matchup that this team wants. They know it's around the corner, where the skeletons have the skeletons, and that makes it, to me, just terrific in every way. Listen, this team has, and I think, Chris said it the other day. He said flipping the switch. Yeah. And I don't know if that's, for him it's the right term. I think for others it's just kind of realizing the moment. And I think we can rest assured this team realizes the moment. I think they know exactly what it is because they've been down this road and they've got a feel for what lies ahead. So I understand impatience. I understand, maybe that queasy feeling in your stomach. Yet at the same time, I have confidence that they're going to put their best basketball on the floor. And I just think that is something you've got to trust in. But to your original point, how fortunate, if you're a Wolves fan, to have a team that is always in the conversation. That is a special feeling. I'm in Kansas City right now, and the Chiefs, were in the Super Bowl 5 of 6 years. And people got a little numb to it, a little numb to the success, sure, and took it for granted. And I can tell you, it's a natural human feeling to have that, way of thinking, but it can also be dangerous because it never lets you really realize that you're kind of in this golden moment of the franchise where they're always a contender. They're always in there fighting. And it's much better to be there than a team like Washington or the old Wolves team back when they began, which you just knew had no prayer, no hope, no chance. And here we got a team that is always in it and with a remarkable young player that you don't have to worry about filling that slot. Like, you've got your signature guy. General managers can spend a lifetime looking for a signature player. Well, they've got him, and he's getting better, and he doesn't seem to be anything wayward. He's got a good compass, and he's maturing by the day. His game evolves by the game, and I just love that combination. So it lets you do some other creative things around him. And that's what you mentioned, Tim, that's the kind of stuff he can do. And he's done it. And I think you just say, this is the blueprint. We got our template. Let's move ahead here and see where this takes you. And then if there are moves that need to be made, then they're going to make them this off season as they just continue to be in the game and strive for what the eventual outcome is going to be, which we hope is a championship or certainly an appearance in the finals, which to me feels like you've arrived anyway. So, but I sure like their chances with this roster.
Your job is to call games. And to a certain extent, it occurs to me that, well, does it really matter all that much what network you're doing it on? But I'm guessing there's differences in different situations. So tell me what the Kevin Harlan Prime experience has been like.
Great people, really innovative, wanting to knock a home run every game. I think we're familiar with some of the complaints about latency and maybe some discrepancy in audio and the actual play. I think that's inherent in all streaming systems. This is a company that is getting into it on this type of volume set. They've had the NFL. That's one game, one night, and a lot of hands on deck. Here they're doing double headers. They got a triple header tomorrow. I think they're trying to do something that very few streamers have done with major production, and they're going to go back to back to back tomorrow. So all that aside, which I know nothing about, I can hardly tie my shoe, but that aside, I would say that being around a group that has so much passion for what they're doing is always inspiring, especially to someone my age and how long I've been lucky enough to be in the business, and it's contagious. So I would tell you that at TNT, it never got like old hat, but that last year when they knew they weren't getting it back, and the writing was on the wall, their eyes were straying to other properties. They were looking at, okay, let's make sure we got our French Open tennis going. Let's make sure we've got our Major League Baseball stuff set. And the NBA, in a way, kind of became that forgotten child. We were out there kind of dangling a little bit by ourselves, and the attention to detail may not have been there. The full force of the TNT production arm was probably, not completely as engaged as they had been when they had the rights and they knew they were going to get the rights. And it was just kind of a different feel. And it's, again, a natural feel. I'm not saying they gave up. I'm just saying that they began to think about the things they were going to have long term as opposed to things they were going to lose in another month. So we did the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and it's not that we felt like we were, taken for granted, but I think there was a stage where you felt like, are they even paying attention? We saw our leadership less on the floor with us, on the court, on the road with us late in the season, and that became a little bit of a demoralizing thing with our crew. Not for me, I was fine, but I think for a lot of people, they always love to see our management on the road and fully engaged, and I don't know that they were as much like that as opposed to being, looking at ahead what they had and what they were going to be working with.
Yeah, that's very honest, and it makes some sense. That doesn't surprise me. I will add that, and I don't want to turn this into bashing ESPN because there's a lot of fine product on ESPN, but I do think, as someone who's watched a lot of basketball and watched a lot of TV broadcasts, national broadcasts, that between what you guys have done and what the NBC Peacock group has done, I think the coverage feels different. It's not that there's any problem with debate. I felt sometimes previously it seemed forced, as if you're debating just for the sake of creating debate on some stories that weren't even worthy of debate, and that there's just been more of a sense of context, history. I feel like that's been the case for you guys and for Peacock as well. You have any thoughts on that?
I think ESPN is in a very difficult position. They hold they're a major rights holder for major sports, baseball, to a degree, the NHL, and they've got so much volume to fill, and each department has got its own interest. There's the college football group, the college basketball group, there's the midday show, there's the daily show, there's the early morning 2 shows back to back with Get Up and with Stephen A. I mean, you're trying to hit a lot of moles here as they pop up, and it becomes inevitably you're going to have someone get their nose bent out of shape because of an angle they've got to deal with and a story that is there, and how they deal with it and who they offend, and is it a rights holder? Is it a sport that we are really with in every way? The NFL is going to feel this a little bit with the NFL Network going over there, and will they cover those stories? Which I'm sure they will, but it's such a massive production in every way that there's really no easy way to do it. They want every show to have its singular purpose, whether it's Kornheiser and Wilbon and what that meant, and with the NFL Live, with all those guys, the NBA Daily Show for an hour. They've just got so, and just the updates. They've got so much to deal with that, and they brought it on themselves. It's not like they were just given it, and this is what they have to deal with it. It's that they wanted all this, and they've got it, and navigating that can be challenging. As someone in the business, I do admire how they go about doing the things they do and how they really pull it off pretty seamlessly. I mean, technically, what they do is astounding. And the number of people and moving parts they've got with all the broadcasters and producers and directors and studios and shows and salaries and like all of it is just, it's so mind-numbing. And so you cannot even begin to dig into just how complex it is. But they do it, and the fact that we rarely talk about, all the things that could come up and deal with maybe a weird comment here or something over there is pretty remarkable. So I guess I feel, and I get what you're saying. We love the game, and there's so much to love about the game and the different sports. But they've got to do that. They've got to keep the casual fan. They've got to reel in the female viewer. Like, they've got so much to do. It's a big task. And I as someone who kind of has a feel for it, I realize that it's enormous. And I respect how they do as well as they do. Yeah, the feel. I like the feel on your broadcast, I think, and I also like Peacock. I get your point as well. I've kept you too long. One last item, though, that is important for us to get to here before the top of the hour break here, and we let you go. I want to pass along sympathies from this end, obviously. You lost your dad last month, the former Packers president and CEO, Bob Harlan. The guy on the production side today, Brett Blakemore, is a huge Packers guy, and I know feels very strongly about what the Harlan name means in the Packers' storied history. So I hope everybody's doing okay, coping with what can never be fun. Well, I appreciate your kind, because we're friends. You know how much that means to me, you saying that. We've got a lot of people in the Twin Cities and in the state of Minnesota have reached out, actually, and I'm so grateful, and it just warms my heart. Our hearts are full with gratitude with all the people that have sent nice messages and cards and everything else. And but as I say, he lived to 89. He loved every day he was on this earth. He loved sports. He wanted to be a sports writer like Dan Barreiro. He wanted to be a columnist like you, Dan. That's what he grew up wanting to be. And as it turned out, he got into the sports side and worked at Marquette with Al McGuire, with the baseball Cardinals in St. Louis, then 37 years with the Packers. And every day he woke up, he loved his job. He loved what he did. And he felt honored that he would be in charge of such a historic enterprise as the Green Bay Packers, and answered his own phones. Fans could call and complain about losses, about ticket prices. He didn't have anybody in between. He answered his own phone every time. And I just always found that so remarkable. But he loved his job, and he instilled that in the three of us, his sons, and I'm the oldest, and I saw it every day. And I thought, man, if I could ever find a job that I can't wait to get to every morning I wake up, won't life be more enjoyable? And he taught me that skill, and then dealing with people. And I guess I just kind of feel like when you lose someone young, it's so crushing. It's so sad. It can be debilitating. When you lose someone who's lived a full life and deep into their 80s, and he was not too far away from 90, he loved everything about what he did. He was with my mom for over 70 years. He enjoyed everything about what his life was, and he was a man in full. He loved. I remember I was actually at his bedside when he passed, and was holding on to his wrist and keeping his pulse because we knew that the time was approaching and there was no life-saving measure intact because of a respiratory issue that he was going through. And when that final, as I was holding his wrist and that final beat of his heart went off, I thought that heart beat for 89 years, and we should all wish to have a life so full, so happy, so incredibly gratifying that it was really with a humble heart that I sat there and watched him in his last breath, but also knowing that he died a happy man, a content man, an accomplished, recognized, but he loved what he did, and he loved his family, and he was with the love of his life for over 70 years. So it was really, it's always hard to lose someone, but it was so great that he was an example, and he will always be that to me and my brothers, and to watch the kind of life that he lived. But your words are meaningful, and I'm so thankful for them, and appreciate your friendship and all the wonderful notes and texts and emails and cards that our family has received. It's been overwhelming, and our hearts are full of gratitude. Such
a rich history. So well put. Mr. Harlan, it's always a pleasure. We really appreciate the extended time. Hopefully we will see you next week once again. Have a great call tomorrow, as I'm sure you will.
Thank you. I cannot wait to see the team. I love doing the Wolves. My heart will always be with that franchise. My family is grateful for the time we've spent with them. 9 incredible years, and I still feel connected. Anxious to see about how this series turns out. Can't wait to get up there next Thursday, but certainly can't wait for the beginning of the series tomorrow. Dan, great to visit with you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much. Be good, Kevin. We'll see you next week.
Take care, Dan. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Kevin Harlan, kind enough to join us. Just remarkable stuff from him, as always. We're running a little late. We're expecting a hotline phone call from the Wild president of hockey operations, Bill Guerin. That is coming up next.